The first snow of winter fell like whispered secrets over the town of Bitter Creek, dusting rooftops and cloaking the dusty streets in quiet white. The sun, a pale and hesitant orb, struggled to pierce the gray veil of clouds as dawn broke slowly, casting long shadows across the frozen landscape. A brittle wind swept through the skeletal trees, carrying the sharp scent of pine and wood smoke, and sending a chill that seeped into the bones of anyone brave enough to wander outside. Amid the frozen stillness, a lone figure approached the town square, her silhouette heavy and uneven against the frost-bitten morning light. Maggie Mae O'Rourke moved with care, her boots crunching deep into the snow as she pulled her threadbare shawl tighter around her broad shoulders. Her breath came in small, visible clouds, mingling with the cold air as she made her way to the center of the town, where the wedding wagon was waiting. The wagon, decorated with pine boughs and faded ribbons, seemed almost fragile beneath the weight of the winter sky. Maggie's heart thudded unevenly, a mix of hope and dread swelling within her chest. This was the moment she had longed for and feared in equal measure. To step into a world that had, until now, only offered her cold shoulders and colder whispers. The townsfolk gathered around, their faces pale and drawn against the cold, eyes sharp with judgment rather than warmth. Whispers stirred like dry leaves curling in the icy air. "There goes the bride," one muttered, lips barely moving but voice thick with derision. Another laughed softly, a sound as brittle as the frost beneath their feet. Maggie's fingers trembled, not from the cold alone, but from the weight of their stares, heavy, unyielding, and merciless. Her body, large and ungraceful in their eyes, bore the burden of their scorn as much as the winter cloak draped about her. She hesitated at the edge of the wagon, hands gripping the worn wooden rail. The ladder to climb aboard was narrow, slick with frost, and her heavy frame made the task all the more daunting. The laughter rose like a sudden gust, harsh and unforgiving, as she fumbled, one boot slipping. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Time slowed, each face frozen in a tableau of amusement and cruelty. Maggie's heart threatened to shatter beneath their gaze. And then, a steady hand, rough and sure, closed around hers. Eli Callahan, known across the valley as the rancher, with eyes as deep and steady as the winter night, had stepped forward. His grip was firm but gentle, a quiet defiance against the mocking crowd. Without a word, he lifted her carefully, easing her back onto the wagon with a strength that spoke of unspoken kindness. Their eyes met, hers wide with surprise, his calm and unwavering, and for a fleeting moment, the biting cold seemed to soften. The laughter fading into uneasy murmurs, Maggie settled, breath ragged but heart stirring with a fragile ember of something she had long forgotten. Hope. The crowd shifted, uncertain now, as if the presence of this silent guardian unsettled their confidence. Yet beneath the surface, the whispers continued, sharp and persistent, like the bite of winter's frost that refused to thaw. That night, in the small cabin she had rented at the edge of town, Maggie sat by the fire, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Her hands, calloused and worn, cradled a chipped cup of bitter tea, but the warmth did little to thaw the chill nestled deep within. She gazed out the frosted window pane at the relentless snowfall, each flake a reminder of the loneliness that wrapped her heart tighter than any fur shawl. Memories stirred, childhood moments of laughter and light, now distant and fragile as the frost on the glass. She thought of the friends lost, the dreams discarded like autumn leaves. The judgment of Bitter Creek felt like a wound reopened, raw and aching beneath her skin. Yet beneath the pain, a quiet resolve began to take root, tentative as the first green shoots beneath winter's retreat. Clara Finch, the widow who had taken Maggie under her wing with soft smiles and steady presence, knocked gently before entering. Her eyes held the quiet wisdom of someone who had known loss and found grace within it. Without speaking, Clara set a small bundle on the table, a few loaves of bread and a piece of cloth, worn but clean. It was a gesture of friendship, small and unassuming, but to Maggie, it felt like sunlight piercing through clouds. In the days that followed, Maggie moved through the town like a shadow. Her presence met with cold glances and whispered gossip, yet the sting of rejection did not break her. Instead, it tempered her like steel forged in fire. She learned the rhythms of Bitter Creek, the creak of the saloon doors, the snap of the blacksmith's hammer, the quiet footsteps of Eli as he passed by the general store. She noticed his occasional glances, brief and guarded, a silent offering of respect that she accepted with cautious hope. The winter deepened, and with it, Maggie's resolve. She found solace in small rituals. The morning fire she tended with care, The steady rhythm of mending her worn clothes, the slow unfolding of a new life in this unforgiving land. The harsh winds and endless snow became not only a trial, but a backdrop against which her spirit quietly strengthened. One evening, as the town gathered for the annual winter festival, Maggie stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the flicker of lanterns and the swirl of dancers moving like firelight across the snow. Her heart fluttered with a mix of fear and anticipation. The festival was a chance to belong, yet also a place where old prejudices would flare. Eli appeared beside her as if summoned by her silent longing. Without a word, he offered his coat, draping it gently over her shoulders. The warmth of the fabric was a balm not only against the cold, but against the doubts that still gnawed at her soul. Their eyes met again, this time holding something unspoken but deeply understood. A fragile thread of connection weaving between two solitary hearts. As the music swelled and the crowd's laughter rose, Maggie felt, for the first time in a long while, the stirrings of something she dared to name hope. The winter night stretched before her, vast and mysterious, holding promises yet to be discovered. And though the road ahead remained uncertain and steeped in shadows, she no longer faced it alone. The tale of Maggie Mae O'Rourke was only beginning, a story written not in grand declarations but in quiet moments, in the strength to rise after a fall, in the courage to stand against judgment, and in the small acts of grace that ignite the soul's enduring flame. As the snow continued to fall softly outside, the promise of transformation glimmered just beyond the horizon, waiting patiently for the dawn. The winter festival breathed life into Bitter Creek, a fragile flame against the endless cold. Lanterns flickered like fireflies caught in the night, casting amber pools of light onto faces worn by frost and hard living. The sharp scent of burning wood mingled with the sweet aroma of roasted chestnuts, weaving a tapestry of warmth and celebration beneath the darkening sky. Maggie Mae O'Rourke stood near the edge of the gathering, the weight of her thick coat and the softness of Eli Callahan's borrowed shawl a shield against both the cold and the biting eyes that had not yet fully forgiven her. Her breath came slow and steady, each visible puff dissolving into the night like fragile hope. Around her, the townsfolk swirled in a dance of laughter and music, their shadows casting long shapes on the snow. Yet in the midst of revelry, the past lingered like a ghost. Whispers floated through the crisp air, sharper than icicles. The obese bride, some said, still hanging on to foolish dreams. But others hesitated, watching Maggie with newly curious eyes, stirred by the quiet strength she carried beneath the heavy fur. Eli was nearby, a silent guardian woven into the tapestry of the crowd. His gaze found hers and held it, steady and unwavering. No grand words passed between them. There was no need. The language they spoke was one of subtle gestures, a slight nod, the gentle offering of his coat, the way his eyes softened when they met hers. It was a conversation written in pauses and looks, in the spaces between words that said everything and nothing all at once. Maggie's heart thudded quietly, the rhythm of fragile song she was learning to trust. The shame that once clung to her like a second skin now loosened, replaced by a cautious spark of belonging. She had not come to Bitter Creek to be pitied or mocked, but to find a place where she could breathe and grow. And in Eli's quiet presence, that possibility bloomed like the stubborn wildflowers that push through the snow. As the night deepened, a frozen pond at the outskirts of town became a secret refuge from the murmurs and watchful eyes. Maggie found herself drawn there, the ice reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. Eli followed, his boots crunching softly on the hardened snow, joining her on the weathered bench that overlooked the silent water. Together, they sat in a companionable stillness, the silence between them filled with unspoken understanding. The cold was biting, but Eli's coat wrapped around Maggie felt like a shield beyond the physical, a promise of protection and acceptance. She turned to him, lips trembling slightly from the chill or perhaps from something deeper. Their eyes met again, and in that gaze, a quiet warmth spread, melting away the layers of doubt and fear. No declarations were made, no promises uttered. Instead, there was a gentle sharing of moments, a laugh at a clumsy slip on the ice, the soft brush of a hand adjusting a shawl, the way breath mingled in the cold air like whispered secrets. Yet beneath the fragile peace, the town's undercurrents of judgment remained, threatening to unravel the delicate thread of connection. Sheriff Jedediah Boone, a man as rigid and unyielding as the frozen earth beneath their feet, watched from the sidelines. His eyes narrowed, lips curling into a smirk as he raised his voice during the festival's crescendo. "Maggie Mae," he called out, voice cutting through the music and chatter. "Still hanging on to that foolish dream, are you?" The town don't need a bride who can't even keep on her feet. A hush fell over the crowd, a frozen moment where the air grew thick with tension. The laughter that once mocked Maggie now felt like a challenge, a test of the quiet strength she had fought so hard to nurture. All eyes turned toward her, awaiting her reaction. A plea, a sob, a crumpled retreat into shame. But Maggie did not falter. Her voice, when it came, was soft but unwavering, carrying the weight of every lonely day and every whispered insult. "I may have stumbled," she said, "but I'm still here, standing, breathing, trying. Not just for me, but for every soul who's been told they don't belong because they don't fit a certain shape or mold." The words hung in the air, fragile as frost but burning with a fierce light. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Some eyes softened, others averted, but none could deny the courage it took to stand tall in the face of scorn. Eli stepped forward then, his voice low but steady, carrying a strength that silenced even the sheriff's sneer. "Maggie Mae is part of this town, not because she's perfect, but because she's real, stronger than any of us who hide behind walls of judgment." The crowd shifted, the cold tension breaking like ice underfoot. Applause rose, hesitant at first, then growing, a wave of respect washing over Maggie, carrying her from the edge of despair into a place of newfound dignity. Sheriff Boone's eyes flashed with grudging respect, and though he said nothing more, his retreat was a tacit admission of defeat. Maggie's breath caught, a tear slipping free despite the cold. Eli's steady hand found hers, squeezing gently. No grand gestures, no words needed. Just a silent promise that she was seen, valued, and no longer alone. The festival's music resumed, softer now, carrying the notes of a new beginning. Maggie and Eli lingered by the pond, watching the snow fall in lazy spirals, each flake a quiet testament to survival and renewal. The world was vast and often unforgiving, but in this small corner of the frontier, two souls had found a fragile warmth amid the winter chill. Her journey was far from over, the road ahead uncertain and winding, but Maggie Mae O'Rourke had reclaimed her place not by shouting or fighting, but through quiet resilience and the courage to rise each time she fell. Her story was woven into the fabric of Bitter Creek now, a testament to the power of small acts of grace and the unspoken strength found in gentle connection. And so, to you who listen now, remember this. Sometimes the fiercest battles are fought in silence, beneath the weight of cold stares and whispered doubts. Yet it is in those moments, when you stand despite the falling snow and rising laughter, that the true measure of your spirit is revealed. Hold fast to those small lights, the kindnesses offered, the hands extended, the glances that linger, for they are the stars that guide us through the darkest nights. If this tale of quiet courage and unexpected grace has stirred something within you, I invite you to subscribe and stay close. There are more stories waiting in the shadows of the Wild West. Stories of resilience, connection, and the enduring human heart. Together we'll keep the fire burning.